when we're taking any action at all, just any action whatsoever, you need to be able to ask yourself this really important question: what am I hoping to gain from my action? I act in really, really quick defense to trans people when some bigot comes in and starts saying some stuff that we know based on research is incorrect. What do you think a very, very, like, angry response to the person's gonna do? To make it make sense, flip it on the other side. Let's say that you're in a group and you say a statement, whether true or false, and a bunch of conservatives just started attacking you. Your initial response is not going to be sitting there thinking, oh, I wonder how this, I wonder what life experiences this person has that dictate where they are right now. I wonder how I can learn from this person. What information can I gain from them? That's not the thing in your mind. And if any of you are honest, that you know that's not the thing on your mind. The thing on your mind is taking what that person said and going, okay, listen here, you stupid motherfucker, you absolute fucking troglodyte. Listen here, you piece of feces on the bottom of somebody else's shoe because I can't be fucked to even consider you on mine. That's where your brain's going. I promise you. The majority of people, their brain is going to a very hostile spot. And it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. We are wired, especially when we're always on the defense. We are wired to fight back, to protect those that we care about, to try to advocate for those we love. It's what we do, and it's a healthy thing to want to do. But if your goal is not to immediately protect something, but to change a person's mind, to make that person stop having an attitude that is caustic, then I think most people would agree you're not gonna do any good with your knee-jerk reaction. It's not actually going to do anything at all. All it's gonna do is immediately paint you as every single negative stereotype that whatever content creator they listen to has told their audience that you are. Orla says, depends, because communicating online gives you a layer that allows you to process better. Right, but it doesn't actually depend. Because if somebody is attacking you, just attacking you, your brain's going into defense. I understand that you want to approach it with, well, there's some people that will be different. Well, there's a layer of anonymity. Well, there's this. Well, there's that. No, that is not how human beings on the whole operate. We see a jerk, we call out a jerk, we act like the jerk's a jerk, and the more of us there are, the more confident we are in telling that person that they're a jerk. And we can be entirely correct in doing so. But if our goal is to change the jerk's mind, we're not gonna do that by attacking them. People only ever change their own minds. So, the only way to get their mind to change is to provide them with an opportunity for growth. And nobody, generally speaking, considers themselves as having an opportunity for growth if they are getting attacked. They are too busy trying to fight the good fight at that point. They are too busy trying to defend themselves. Because remember, from our perspective, let's say we're talking about trans kids, right? From the perspective of a lefty who is well-informed about the topic, we are the ones who are actually trying to protect kids. Because we have the research that backs up the position that that is what we are doing. The end result of our actions leads to more people being protected, more people being happy, more people being able to live their lives as they choose. We know that based on data, based on evidence, based on the lived experiences of people. But you have to consider that the person that you are trying to change the mind of, they think they're coming from the same position. Whether ill-informed or not, they believe the exact same thing is happening for their position. They believe they're coming from the position of common sense. They believe they're coming from the position of reality. And if we're talking about things that people are going to get really up in arms about really fast, they're coming from the position of being the ones who really want to protect the kids. That's their thought. To them, we on the left are no better than child predators because we are advocating for something that they deem predatory towards children. Think of it this way, to throw the perspective in the other way. Let's say that we are looking at somebody like the faithful sheriff, right? The dude who we all agreed on the last stream that I did on him was in fact definitionally a predator towards children for trying to indoctrinate them into a caustic ideology. But from their perspective, from the perspective of a Christian audience, he's trying to save people, and he's using the internet. He's using the best, most efficient method possible in the modern age. He is doing what many preachers have failed to adapt to for years, and so from their perspective, he actually is this soldier of Christ, or whatever fuck shit thing you want to say, right? Now, again, we know that the likelihood of a God existing is probably minimal, and we know that trying to tell children that their actions will cause them to burn in hell is, at best, a bad Aesop's fable, and at worst, incredibly abusive. But if you grew up in a Christian household, what would your perspective have been then? And how would you have responded to somebody trying to change that perspective? What things would somebody have been able to say that would have changed your perspective? And it's probably not attacking you, because if you're honest with yourself, your perspective from the age that you were a kid is likely one that has been incredibly colored by Christianity. Colored so much so by Christianity that you would be doing anything in your power to defend the faith. That's a pretty common thing amongst people who grew up Christian, is we kind of grow up believing that we're soldiers of Christ, and we need to protect the good word so that Jesus' name is not blasphemed or any other descriptor for it. That's what we're told to do. We are told that we are soldiers in a war for people's souls, and we are supposed to come together to protect those souls. From that perspective, what does an attack look like? Well, it looks like a siege. It looks like a siege on your fortress of religiosity, your fortress of reason. Now, we can use all the logic in the world to show that actually, no, the person who's being illogical is the person who's trying to indoctrinate children. The person who's being illogical is the person telling kids they're going to burn in hell. We can do that all day long. But that is a perspective informed by our internal group perspective. And we need to be able to figure out how to take somebody else out of their internal group perspective. Because you got to remember, when they're done with the conversation with any of us, when they're done with any conversation with any of us, what are they going to do? They're going to go talk to their friends and family, and we're going to be the weird weirdos who wanted to indoctrinate kids into trans ideology. That's where they're going to sit. We are not going to be the reasonable interlocutors that tried to debate them into the ground and used facts and logic. That's never how we're going to be seen nor portrayed. We are always going to be seen as much more caustic as a baseline. So reinforcing that belief for them, giving them all of the information they need to have that belief reinforced, it doesn't do us any favors. If our goal is to get people to a position where they cause less harm to themselves and others, we never will be able to achieve that goal if everybody automatically defaults to, hey, these guys are the enemies. That doesn't mean that there's not a point in trying to, like, initiate strength, right? It doesn't mean there's not a point where you come in with the righteous indignation and it is a valuable tool. There's times for that. There is a place and time for that. I'm not saying that that is useless. But if you start the conversation, any conversation, with, my goal is to change this person's mind and perspective, you can't do that if they see you as an enemy. They have to see you as a friend. At the very least, they have to see you as an interlocutor that is talking with the same language that they're doing. They have to at very least see that. So I know that, like, again, when some chucklefuck comes into my chat and they decide they want to be an asshole, let me be the one that decides whether I want to be an asshole to them or whether I want to spend a little bit of time leading a horse to water. I can't make him drink. I can't. I never will be able to make him drink. But I consider it a worthwhile use of my time to try to get people out of their caustic ideologies. I consider it a valuable use of my time, and I want the opportunity to try to do that. Said the God of the whole Bible does that, to be honest. Anselin says, I don't know, Old Testament God seems like a stereotype abuser. Right, but how are you going to convince somebody that that is the case? How do you convince them that that's the case unless they at least think you guys are talking the same language? This is why sometimes it behooves you to sit down and talk to people who have different ideologies so that you can at least see what perspective they're coming from. Because again, like with the trans kids thing, we're coming from a perspective of, well, science says this, research says this, and I want to be on the side of science, research, reason, etc. They're coming from the position of, well, common sense says this. And we can wax lyrical about how useless of a metric common sense is because it's literally just the combined informed biases that you have, but there is a time and place for that observation as well. Sebi says he did refer to us, and I quote, as weirdos. You're right. He did. When that guy came into the chat, he did name call us as weirdos. However, escalation theory, as far as I understand it, I'm no expert on it, mind you, but to my understanding, the rules with escalation theory are that when somebody introduces a tool into a conflict, it inadvertently gives you the permission to use that tool yourself, which is a very useful thing if your goal is to win a conflict. But remember, your goal here isn't win a conflict. Your goal here is convince somebody that they're wrong. Your goal here is change somebody's mind, make them a better person. So if the goal we're shooting for is defeat them in the arena of facts and logic, Ben Shapiro style, then sure, we can call them a weirdo right back, and we can use every tool that they use as they use it. Absolutely. Like I said, time and place for that. But if our goal is to change their mind, then there is a level not of being a bigger person, but of selecting the correct tool for offense. I don't believe in the being a bigger person thing the same way that a lot of people say in the Democratic Party do, because I think that history has shown that the when they go low, we go high route just means that people who we disagree with have access to tools that we don't have access to, and they get to keep using and abusing them. But I think there's always a good argument for taking stock of the tools that you have access to rhetorically and figuring out which ones are going to be better equipped for your goal. Again, if your goal is beat somebody in the arena of facts and logic, then yeah, be as insulting as you want. Absolutely. Trounce on them. Make a fool of them. They're stupid after all. They're saying things that are completely against what science says. Yeah, duh. Absolutely. Dick on them. But that's not going to work if your goal is change their mind. They're just going to see you as an enemy. And this is a good piece of advice for anybody in any stage of life, any stage whatsoever, because it's not just about changing people's minds right now. It's whenever you're taking any action at all, ask yourself, what do I gain from this action? What thing do I receive when I engage in this action? What's the logical end result of what I'm doing? And is it worth my time? This is why, like, when people lash out at others, even if they're correct, they don't necessarily achieve the results that they're aiming for, because they're not aiming for a result. They're just lashing out as best they can. So always just take a minute and ask yourself, what do I want out of this conversation? What do I want? Do I want to act strong and piss on this dude's Cheerios? Is that what I need to make my day better? Is that something that I need more than they need correcting? Or is what I need right now to take one more bigot in the world and change their minds such that they are not a bigot anymore? Which one of these is more important to me today? And I can't tell you which one it's going to be all the time, because there are times where I will just decide, all right, this motherfucker came into the chat, their content today, fuck you, buddy, it's time. There are times where I'm going to make that decision. And then there are times, like when Thrag came in, where I will instead go, okay, hold on. You said gender-affirming care for minors is bad. I understand that is your perspective. Can you at least humor me by defining what that means so that we can all be on the same page? And then, of course, he did not give a good explanation of anything, of course, because 9 times out of 10, these people haven't actually thought through their positions. But guess what? By asking him to think through his position, there is a chance, however small, that he will sit there and recognize, oh, I didn't come to my conclusion via any logical mechanism. I came to my conclusion from a reactionary mechanism. I came to my conclusion from anger, from indignation. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you will get a person that recognizes that that is where their position is coming from. It is not coming from internal or external critique. It is coming from an insecurity of some kind. Kiwi says, congrats, you got the main character card. Roll initiative. Subnark says, even if you manage to change their mind, they aren't likely to admit it. I don't need them to admit it. I don't care if they admit it. It doesn't matter if they admit it. If they change their mind, that will be a thing that informs their decision-making from that moment onward, forevermore. I don't need them to admit to me that their mind is changed, because changing their mind isn't a thing I'm doing for me. And I think often we make the mistake of having these conversations for ourselves, as opposed to looking at other people as misinformed and having the conversation for their sake. And I know that it can seem really, really counterintuitive when somebody is telling you, quite frankly, the equivalent of you deserve to die, you're a pedophile, what have you. And again, there's time and place for righteous indignation there. We watched a video where a couple was attacked on the street, being called pedophiles for having a kid while being gay. And I think as a group, our critique of that was, I think any parent would be perfectly viable to physically assault somebody when they are told by a random person on the street they're going to rape their kid. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do at that point. Time and place. Always a time and place. Sergeant Pepper1122, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. There's going to be times where we see that. But then there's going to be times where somebody comes into chat, wants to pick a fight, finds that people are a little more reasonable than they thought, and then comes away from that, at the very least, thinking that the words that they were told about a group of people from whom they decide is their betters were incorrect. That's progress. That is a form of progress. It is not the same thing as changing a person's mind in whole or in part. It is not as good as changing a person's mind in whole or in part, but it's part of the process. It is a necessary part of the process that if we cannot at least do, then the only thing we ever get to do as a community, or, me as the owner of this channel, the only thing I'll ever be able to do is preach to a choir. Tell a bunch of lefties things that they already agree with because they've already decided that they're on the political left. So I'll say things that sound lefty-ish and they'll agree with me, irrespective of whether they're right or wrong. I don't find much use in that. I'm just as fallible as the next person. I can be corrected, and I think it's okay for us to treat other people the same way. They can be corrected. They can be informed. Everybody has a capacity to be a better person. I don't want to bring fiction into this because I don't think it's always a realistic depiction of how people are, but like Dragon Ball Z. A lot of people's favorite characters are Piccolo and Vegeta, and one of the main reasons is they are characters who began as villains, very, very evil villains, and fundamentally changed who they were as people, and watching their journey was a really, really fulfilling thing for a lot of people. But you got to remember, their ability to have that journey in a fictional story was informed by the real-life scenario of people having similar journeys and becoming better people. I said Vegeta has a pretty good redemption arc. Yeah, and I'll argue it's made even better in Dragon Ball Super when he actually goes to Namek and apologizes for the things he's did. Like, that's good redemption arc. People can have redemption arcs. Let them have redemption arcs. There are very few things in real life that I think a person can do that causes them to not be viable to be redeemed. A lot of those things involve children, but Bragwin says, there will be some people who don't care who's right or wrong. The bigotry is the only thing keeping them above the people that they hate. And they will fight tooth and nail to maintain that ideology, knowing when to write people off as a skill. Yeah, and that's another thing. You sometimes, like I said, you're going to find the person who simply cannot be reasoned with, who simply cannot be improved, who will not change their perspective. And if you find that that is a person that's a brick wall. You're only committing damage to yourself trying to convince that person of anything after that point. And again, I can't tell you what factors lead you to see that somebody is a lost cause. I can't. That's something that you're going to have to figure out for each individual person that you're dealing with. There is no cheat sheet for this. I know that the neurodivergents in my chat would really like there to be a hard set of rules that they can follow to navigate this complicated social issue. Those rules don't exist. Every person is a little bit different, and that's gonna come with the territory of the techniques required to change their minds also being a little bit different. But again, I know there's those of us in this community that have just enough a bit of the tism that will go, no, if I can't be given a step-by-step rubric of how this is going to go, I don't know how to handle this social situation. Congratulations. You are now introduced to every social situation you will ever encounter for the rest of your life. Welcome to humanity, everybody. We're all in this together. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.